Today's topic will be discussing activity-based costing and how that costing methodology is integrated within Q-Billing. We will also show the abilities of Q-Billing to export the results of the data. Cube's cross-charging system consists of three primary components. The first component is the organization that is providing a product or service. The second component are the organizations that consume those products and services, and then the third component are the product and services themselves, which is illustrated here as the portfolio. When we look at how activity-based costing works today, the way it is integrated within Q-Billing is that the delivery organizations or the sending cost centers provide a service. The service is represented within the portfolio, and this may be a catalog of products and services that are offered either internally or externally to your clients, and each product and service would utilize activity-based costing to come up with a rate for that offering. The rates can be different for each and every sending cost center, delivery location, or organization that provides a product and service. So for example, you may have organizations that reside all over the world, and each location may have different labor rates, or you may find one organization is more or less productive than a different organization and thus drives different rates. So in today's example, cost allocation methodologies, we're going to look at two basic methodologies. One is a percent allocation, and the second would be a transactional methodology. And in this example, it would be activity-based costing, and more specifically, the time-driven activity-based costing. We understand that there are a lot of different costing methodologies in place today. Many are valid and are recommended depending on what types of products and services companies produce. But this is merely to look at activity-based costing today, and Q-Billing can utilize any costing methodology. In this example, we have a contact center. There are three primary things that's represented. The first is that there are three different job codes: a customer service rep 1, 2, and 3. The second is that these three different customer service representative titles support 5 internal clients. And these 5 internal clients drive 3 different work functions on a day-to-day basis. The customer service reps will add new service, they will document complaints, and they will fix issues. So we're trying to keep this example relatively simple. Cost allocation methodologies, how activity-based costing would typically work, we would look at a few different components to figure out what it costs to provide a product or service. In this example, there are 2 main things that we look at. One is the fully loaded compensation for customer service rep 1, 2, and 3. And the second is the approximate number of hours that these employees work in a given month. So in this example, we're assuming they work 162 hours in a month. And then we start to break down the information into something that makes a little bit more sense for what we're trying to accomplish. So we look at it as a monthly rate, and then we can drill it down even further into an hourly rate, and then we can look at it as a rate per minute. And so as we can see, the rate per minute is less for a customer service rep 1 than it is at 3. At that point, we start to look at how employees are used. So we'll subtract out the benefits, which would be things like vacation and sick time, training, and the things that are provided to employees. So that's time that would not be worked in a given month. And then we'll assume that they're utilized at an 85% rate. So we come up with rates of 40 cents, 46 cents, and 51 cents per minute for the 3 different job codes. The second thing we look at are the services being provided from the contact center. They can add new service, document complaints, and they can fix issues. We then look at how long it takes each of the different 3 job functions to perform these services. And as it's illustrated here, it may take 10 minutes for customer service rep 1 to add new service, where a customer service rep 3 is a little bit more experienced and they can do it in 3 minutes. And we then look at the average salaries for our customer service reps 1, 2, and 3 and come up with a rate per service based on the number of minutes it takes to perform that service. In this contact center, we're using the assumption that there are 70 employees, 40 as a customer service rep 1, 20 with the level 2, and 10 level 3. And the total employee cost for these 70 employees is just over $188,000 per month. What we find for our portfolio rates, to add new service, the average rate is $2.98. To document complaints, it's $8.87, and to fix issues, it's $6.08. So each time a client has an issue that's fixed, the allocated cost would be $6.08. The third thing that we need to do within activity-based costing is to determine the number of instances one of the 3 different services occurs. And in this example, we have our 5 clients, and the client number 1 had new services added 2,000 times in this given month. When we look at all the different transactions that occurred for the 5 different clients over the 3 different service offerings, there were over 27,000 transactions that occurred within this given month. These transactions would typically be housed in maybe your ticketing system, and they would be coded and classified. When we look at percent allocations, in this example, we'll make the assumption that each client drives the same amount of revenue, and the assumption is that cost and revenue are directly related. And so they do a 20% allocation, 20% for each of the 5 different clients to consume the 100% of the cost from the contact center. And in this example, they would be each charged a little over $37,000 to provide the contact center its relief of $188,000 in that given month. However, if we look at the transactional allocations using activity-based costing, we get a slightly different picture. So as we can see, we still have the 5 clients, and then the dollar amounts within each of these buckets are the volumes that were consumed for each of the 3 different services multiplied by the rate for each of the services being consumed. So we had the average or blended rate, the volumes, and we multiply the 2 together to come up with a total amount for each offering. And in this example, we can see that client 2 consumed less than 11% of the overall cost to perform these services, and client number 4 consumed over 40% of the cost. So this allows you the ability to look into your information a little bit closer, which may drive behavior within your company. And so client number 4 may start to look at the complaints and the issues that they have and put together a quality program to try and address the complaints and issues that are occurring in this given month to make that client a little bit more profitable. The other thing to note is that the total amount on this equals $164,713. So the relief doesn't consume the entire $188,000 worth of cost from the contact center. And what that means is the contact center is probably staffing their employees at a rate that's too high. So for example, they're not being utilized at an 85% rate. This may be an 80 or high 70s utilization rate. It's not necessarily a problem, it's just driving to the information, and there are still ways to allocate the cost for anything that's not consumed, the difference between the $164,000 and $188,000, but it provides insight as to how that contact center is being run and the operations behind it. So when we look at activity-based costing, how does this directly interface with Cube billing? Cube's database can do 2 different things. It can feed your existing ERP system, and your ERP system will provide the invoice to all of your clients, and your clients may be internal or external, and in this example, nothing would change from your client's perspective. They would still see their data in the exact same format, the same systems. The only thing that would be different would be the volume of data that would be housed in Cube would be organized and submitted directly into your ERP system. Or the second choice would be for Cube to directly invoice those 5 clients itself, and that can be in a PDF or Word, or we can integrate with some other methodologies that you may have. And then the level of detail will vary by what you need to run your business. So you could have a summarized single line item for all services consumed. So you may have, each client may have one line item invoice for contact services. Or it could be a summary level by each discrete output, and the summary level may be 3 lines of data. Maybe it would be a summary for the ads, a summary for the complaints, and a summary for the fixed issues for each of the 5 clients. Or it could be something even more granular, where we had over 27,000 transactions in this given month, and each individual line of data within the Cube's application database, that could be submitted through the ERP system or directly to the clients, and their invoice could consist of, over the 5 clients, could consist of over 27,000 rows of data. So it really just depends on how you want to run your business and what your needs are to be most successful. Thank you for your time. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly, or for additional information, please visit us at www.cubebilling.com. Thank you.